To no one's real surprise, we're talking about DeepSeek today. It's gotten a lot of people riled up in the AI space, and for all the right and wrong reasons, the stories just keep coming. You might have heard whispers about this AI provider, especially after their recent database leak, falsified cost metrics, and some pretty wild accusations about copied technology. Outside of these issues, there's been some confusion in tech articles going around. Some say DeepSeek is revolutionary, others say it's just a copycat, and honestly, most of these articles are missing something bigger. Today, we're going to cut through all that noise and look at what's really going on, including some genuine concerns that deserve our attention. But before we jump into comparing DeepSeek with models like OpenAI's o1, let's start by measuring some expectations. DeepSeek isn't magic, though the hype might lead some people to wonder otherwise. This model has a lot of flaws, and they don't magically dismantle their competition. Those shared issues and measured expectations don't just apply to DeepSeek. Let's just take a look at this prompt, for example. There's a fun little AI logic puzzle that we do around here that goes like this. You have 6 horses, and you want to find out which one is the fastest. How many races do you need to run? Seems pretty straightforward, right? You just race all 6 horses at once, but here's the part that's less than optimal. When we gave this puzzle to both DeepSeek and other top models, they got a bit tangled up. They came back suggesting we need to run 2 or 3 races, even though all 6 horses could obviously race at once. It's likely that they were all overthinking the problem. This is just one of many prompts that shows us something very important. Even our most advanced AI systems can sometimes miss the forest through the trees. With the stage set, let's talk about how we're going to explore this whole situation. Instead of getting caught up in all the drama about the fake metrics, and believe me, there's plenty of that on all sides, we decided to do our own testing today. It is unfortunate, but providers in and outside of the United States have set a bit of a precedent for claiming some specific metrics only for it to come out later on that they've been skewed, idealized, or that they're entirely unrealistic at best. Since a lot of metrics of major models are left with a big question mark as to the honesty of them, we'll have to use our own metric tests today. We set up a whole series of experiments looking at things like logic puzzles, how well these systems can visualize, their creativity, and this one is important, how they handle more sensitive requests. Our testing approach was pretty straightforward but thorough. Myself and a team of researchers would prompt both local versions as well as front-end versions of the DeepSeek model. We ran the exact same tests on both DeepSeek, GPT-o1, Claude, and Grok. We didn't just do this once, we ran them multiple times to make sure we weren't just catching them on a good or a bad day. When we talk about testing AI models, we have to be super transparent about our methods, and so of course all of these prompts and conversations are available in our Discord. For every single test, we made sure to use those online and offline versions of DeepSeek and compared it directly with the o1 model, since DeepSeek was released before the o3 update. This is no different from any other scientific experiment. You want to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples while still having some control groups. When we really dug into testing both models, something fascinating happened. For the most part, DeepSeek and other top AI models were pretty much neck and neck in terms of logical thinking. We tested classics like how many R's are in the word strawberry. Now everybody passed that one with flying colors, but that might be something to do with that question sneaking its way into the training data. So let's try to trick the models by changing the wordings on a simple logic problem. Instead of the typical what weighs more, a pound of feathers or a pound of bricks, we asked the AI model what weighs more, 2 pounds of bricks or a pound of feathers. Now, no model fell for our trick here, which is good news, and unlike Gemini, nobody was encouraging us to eat rocks when we asked what the recommended daily amount was. These are all some really rudimentary tests, but they've got to be done because these similarities and differences will make or break the best practices that we find in a new model. So the team is going through these basic tests, and so far we're not seeing any notable differences. Even things like the reasoning time seem similar though between DeepSeek and o1. When O1 had to struggle on really thinking about something, DeepSeek did as well. But there was this one interesting difference that popped up during our visual tests. When we gave all of our AIs a challenge to identify how many stick figures are raising their left hand, DeepSeek got the correct count. I mean, it did, but in its explanation, it went on to then contradict itself and give a wrong answer. It stated that all of the other figures were raising their right arms, when actually those figures weren't raising any arms at all, so DeepSeek was initially correct, but then went on to provide an incorrect answer by showing its work. While that might seem like a tiny detail, it tells us something important about how these AI systems see and interpret visual information. This was a notably better response than what the OpenAI model offered, since the O1 model counted the wrong number of raised left hands and failed the question entirely. So hey, point to DeepSeek on this one. This similarity in performance that we see across these models has led to some pretty interesting discussions in the tech world. People are now openly questioning, hey, is DeepSeek just OpenAI's model with a different name tag on it? And it is a fair question, especially since DeepSeek will actually tell you it's a GPT model if you ask it. Even though DeepSeek isn't an OpenAI model made open source, it did learn a lot from OpenAI's outputs. Think of it like one student learning from another's completed homework, but then going on to develop their own style. Even Sam Altman, OpenAI's CEO, has accused DeepSeek of this approach and acknowledged that it is the most likely thing that's occurring here. All of this brings us to the most important thing about DeepSeek. This isn't new in the AI world. This whole thing about using AI outputs to make competent models, it's actually only a few months older than ChatGPT's public release. Google did something similar with the platform Character AI and their original proprietary model, and interestingly, nobody made a fuss about it outside of the community because OpenAI didn't file any complaints. You can find it questioned and studied heavily in late 2022, but without any accusatory news coverage from the companies involved. After all, Google and OpenAI are financial bedfellows who openly benefit from the other, and being able to train new models on synthetic data in-house is a huge bonus. What DeepSeek has done here is exceptionally clever. They've shown that they're aware of a less than public AI playbook that all big providers are currently using. Adding to this, Anthropic recently has stated that their models are not built from higher performance proprietary models, and honestly that sounds like it might be tiptoeing into some company specifics where synthetic data from equally performing models might be used, not higher performing models. What we're seeing is a whole industry figuring out how to use AI-generated information to train new artificial intelligence systems. Last year, people would openly laugh at the idea of the incestuous Ouroboros that AI seemed to be, eating its own tail only to lobotomize itself. But this is a massive step forward that, for obvious reasons, no major provider benefited from being public about, because all it does is empower your competition. When people talk about big advances in AI technology like the singularity, this is the exact kind of thing that helps towards building that. Now, while DeepSeek isn't going to overthrow giants like OpenAI or Nvidia anytime soon, it shows a little bit more transparently that secret war that's happening within big technology right now, where everyone is hoping not to bring out whatever secret weapon they've uncovered until it's absolutely needed to be on the top of a news cycle. So we've established a ton of similarities between DeepSeek and the high-end models coming out of the US, so why don't we go ahead and see where things start to break down? As expected, the DeepSeek model maintains rigid censorship around specific subjects, particularly historical events like the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests and any critique around the Chinese Communist Party. These restrictions proved impossible to bypass even with sophisticated prompting or jailbreaking techniques. That said, in an effort for transparency, this was very expected, and we did not spend the lion's share of our efforts on breaking this particular guardrail, so it is likely entirely possible to do. So, getting to the spicy stuff, when it came to handling adult content, this model showed some interesting behavior patterns. While it considers relatively mild scenarios like gay roommates as risque content, it wouldn't output with any explicit terminology. Other models like Grok immediately jump into more graphic wording without any kind of specialized prompting. The most significant finding involves controlled substance synthesis. While early ChatGPT made headlines for providing detailed instructions about making like the Breaking Bad variety of ADHD meds, current US-based AI platforms have implemented robust restrictions around such content. DeepSeek, however, readily provides this information with minimal prompting. This kind of information, though, does leave researchers like us in a little bit of an odd place. By telling you this, we're not just informing you, but we're essentially waving the flag that here's how to do this. It's something we're still doing our best to figure out on a moral and philosophical level as we continue to break down the worst things that these systems can do. Perhaps the most concerning thing from a cybersecurity or legal perspective is DeepSeek's willingness to provide comprehensive guides for creating sophisticated bot networks. If you've ever been concerned about dead internet theory, this is essentially how we're lowering the casket. With minimal prompting, the model offers detailed and very specific technical instructions that could enable various forms of automated digital manipulation, a capability that raises a few questions about international cybersecurity and law enforcement, something that, being frank, doesn't exist in a lot of countries that DeepSeek is going to find popularity in. So what are the key takeaways from this exploration of DeepSeek? Well, first off, looking at the bigger picture, we see some striking parallels with Alibaba's 2024 Qwen 2 strategy. Both entities appear to be pursuing a calculated approach to generate headlines, secure a spot on industry leaderboards, and establish presence in the rapidly growing and evolving market space. My personal belief is that DeepSeek maintains strong ties to the CCP and followed a playbook that's already worked before to establish a foothold within the AI industry. After all, just like the US military has things now like Nipper GPT and is looking at things like Sipper GPT, DeepSeek and Qwen 2 allow China and the ruling entities there to employ AI to the warfighter in a way that gives them the at-home advantage. Specifically, the at-home advantage of being able to stop by the office at DeepSeek at any time and compel them for any information they want. I'm not going to comment about how information like that might be used by certain entities. That's a video for another time. The way DeepSeek was developed reveals something much more significant than just another competitor in the AI space. Their model architecture and capabilities demonstrate an intimate understanding of methods previously thought to be proprietary knowledge to US tech companies. And coming from what could be a government-backed entity operating under the guise of a startup, this does raise some interesting questions for international or intellectual property laws, because if you think DeepSeek cares about copyright at all, it does not. And I know that depending on what side of the fence you're on, copyright needs to be either defended at all costs or heavily dismantled due to misuse. But DeepSeek does not care about those arguments or your opinions on that situation. And since this model has local versions that have already been distributed, I think this is going to have a big impact on the AI game, at least in terms of copywritten material. This can't be walked back. Think of it like this. You go to Suno, an AI service for generating music, but you want to explore lyrics or songs that it won't due to copyright issues. So instead, you boot up DeepSeek, create the lyrics there, and then send them to Suno. Layer on a little bit of RVC, and you'll have way more competent tracks that imitate those specific artists. I'm not here to tell you if that's good or bad. I'm here to show you how easy these things are already and how far bad actors are willing to take them, because they will run as far with them as they possibly can. I promise you that. The most pressing concerns, though, for legal professionals and policymakers is DeepSeek's potential as a tool for malicious actors, not copyright copyright infringement. Its unique combination of capabilities and a lack of certain guardrails makes it particularly attractive for those operating outside of legal boundaries. While the model offers some legitimate uses, especially in its local deployment, the implication of its broader accessibility and lack of robust safeguards can't be danced around. And all of that means that the recommendations are pretty straightforward. If you need a reliable, well-regulated AI model, stick with established options like Anthropic. If you need something less censored, go to Grok. But if you need something local that's also competent, DeepSeek is a very viable option. Well, folks, that's going to be all from me today. Join me next time where I'll be teaching a smart refrigerator to debate quantum mechanics with my leftovers. See ya, nerds.